Welcome to our webinar today. My name is Tricia Cunningham. I'm the training manager here at LEAP. Before we get started into the webinar, I just want to let everybody know that we are recording the session so we can make the content available to you later. Okay, so let me introduce the panel to begin with. First of all, we have Soraya Power. She's a specialist in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion. She has a passion for promoting the topic in organizations and supporting them in implementing simple, pragmatic, and hugely impactful approaches, helping these organizations create a positive and productive culture for all. Also on the panel today is Terence Morgan. He brings a wealth of HR experience to our panel today. Not only is he a powerful advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion, he also provides phenomenal support for organizations when it comes to compliance issues. He definitely is a trusty and reliable specialist. So let me hand it over to you, Soraya, to take it from here.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Tricia, for the lovely introduction. So as Tricia said, I've been working in the diversity and inclusion space for a long time, and this webinar is a little bit different to any of the training that we've done before or any of the webinars that I've done before personally, where we try to educate you as much as possible. For this webinar today, I want to be able to equip you with the confidence and the words you need to use so that you can persuade your business to invest and celebrate the inclusion and diversity within your workplace. Now, the reason we want to do that is if I remember back whenever I started this journey, I was working with a multinational company and we just started going international with our training that we were doing. And like anybody that's online that knows me probably knows this story, but whenever started going international, first off, we try to copy and paste the training that we were doing to Irish and UK trainees. And we try to train the same over in Turkey, Jamaica. And I remember trying to have that conversation with the directors and saying, hey, I don't know what this is yet, but I know that we're doing something wrong or we're not hitting the mark by adapting to these culture changes. Back then, and that was about 8 years ago, that conversation was very difficult for me because I didn't know how to express the words that were needed to land with the director. Thankfully, they came on board with it and we started doing that work. And this was long before DEI or EDI was abbreviation. So today, I'm going to fast track you, hopefully, through all the things that I've learned and having those difficult conversations so that you're ready to bring it into your workplace. Now, the slides will be shared after, so don't worry, there's a lot of text on them and that's the reason behind it. But I just want to start by kind of looking at the bigger picture first. So every day in Ireland, you just have to look around, right? And you see it absolutely everywhere. Everybody in the population in Ireland is more diverse, and that's coming into our workplaces as well. Within your organizations, you might see somebody it's their first job, working beside somebody that's been there for 40 years. You might see people from different generations, different cultures, and different countries. You might have people that speak in different languages. You might have people in your teams who are neurodivergent, so they're approaching problems and thinking about things differently. The reality is the diversity already exists in our workplaces. So it's not if we're actually diverse. The question is always, are all the people in our businesses feeling included? Diversity is who is in the room, whereas inclusion is whether they're feeling comfortable being themselves and speaking when they are. So why does that matter in businesses? We've established that our workplaces are changing, that they're really diverse already. So the question turns to, why is it a business case? And why should your leaders care about that? So if we be honest with ourselves and all those CEOs, the directors, they're lying in bed at night and they're not really thinking, what is diversity and inclusion? How can I bring diversity and inclusion into the company? That's not the words that they're thinking about. They're really thinking about talent shortages. They're thinking about how can they retain their top employees. They're also thinking about performance, productivity. How can they get more customers? They're always talking about the risks. That's what they're thinking. That's the reality. But those are actually the reasons why diversity, equity, and inclusion belongs in the business conversation, not just the people conversation. When diversity and inclusion is done well within the workplace, you're going to attract better, more diverse talent. You're going to keep them. You're going to have more innovation in an effective way, and you're going to build a stronger workplace culture. Isn't that all what we want to do? So what happens when inclusion is actually missing, right? The cost of per inclusion is real, but it does not always appear directly on the balance sheet. So I'm going to read through these four business impacts that reflect what organizations lose when they fail to foster the belonging that's needed. So the talent turnover. Now, this stat, no matter how many times, and anybody knows I script, we have a huge recruitment department as well. But this stat always shocks me every time I hear it. So whenever people feel undervalued or excluded and they leave the company, did you know that replacing one employee typically costs at least 50% or 200% of their annual salary? So that's taken into consideration the recruitment, the onboarding, and the productivity. Huge cost to the company. Reduces performance. So whenever employees are disengaged, they do the minimum required, ticking the boxes. Teams where psychological safety is absent produce, and this is proven over and over again, lower quality work, and they miss opportunities for the innovation. All the recruitment challenges. Employer reputation travels fast. We all know the power of LinkedIn, all the social media these days. Organizations that are known for poor inclusion or culture, they struggle to attract candidates, particularly among the younger generations who prioritize workplace values. Now, I have a feeling Terence, whenever he comes on later within the webinar, might touch on this, but the day and age that we're sitting at now, I think we're very, very close, if you haven't heard it yet, to seeing candidates approach a company through the recruitment stage, and instead of asking questions like, what are your perks and benefits? What's my bonus structure and the salary? What's going to be rolling off their tongue soon, if you haven't heard it yet, is things like, what's the culture like? Do you have a diversity and inclusion policy? Do you have employee resource groups that represent people like me? We need to get prepared to be able to answer those questions. Now, legal reputation at risk. So exclusionary practices, whether they're intentional or not, always expose organizations to employment claims. Now, I'm going to let Terence cover a lot of the legal aspect of it yet, but these are the buzzwords, as I said, that we need to start familiarizing ourselves with to roll up within the company. Now, the hidden cost, right? So this is, now, anybody that knows me, I'm a very glass half full kind of person, but we do have to be honest and realize what happens whenever the cost that's happening, whenever we're not being inclusive and celebrating the diversity within our workplace. So employees don't always leave. They're quietly quitting. So that's the phrase that we use here. They're quietly quitting. But what we're really talking about here is exclusion, right? So I want you to all to take a moment, and hopefully most people in the room have a memory like this. If not, if you're a parent, just think about if you have children. Imagine whenever you were a child, if you were always chose last for your favorite team sport. Imagine constantly feeling like you don't belong. How long would it be, or was it, before you stopped trying, before you dropped your effort, before your confidence disappeared, before you left that team? Sometimes with children, My own one, definitely. It looks like frustration. Sometimes it looks like withdrawal, the tantrums. Sometimes it looks like just challenging behavior. Now imagine all those same feelings today in the workplace. Imagine if you weren't invited into the discussions. Imagine if all of your ideas were ignored. Imagine if you were spoken over repeatedly. How would that make you feel? You would disengage, and most people don't leave like that. This is something that happens gradually over time. What it's often seen as, unless you're aware of what is actually happening, some people see it as laziness or bad attitude. It's just your staff getting disconnected from the organization. So why do all those little things happen? And like a little bit of an education piece and on this slide, but whenever we talk about bias, and it's part of the training that we do, it is a difficult conversation, but it is part of being a human being, which we all are. And it's definitely not a finger pointing activity. Whenever we're doing training in bias, I always ask the same question and I always say, how many type of bias are there? And I know my screen's being shared now, but most of the time people say two, conscious and unconscious. There's a lot more. So the reason that I'm showing you this slide now is because the only way that I've learned over all the years in education in this space, in my experience, the only way that you can prevent any of these happening is to constantly remind yourself and have pause and think what they actually are. Okay? So I'm going to take a moment to do that with you all here today. So unconscious bias, as you know, it's the stereotypes that affect your decisions without conscious awareness. Affinity bias. So the tendency to favor people who are similar to us in your background, interests, or style. So to give an example, if I was working with another woman from Derry and she was on my team, I might affinity bias would be me choosing her to lead a project instead of thinking about anybody else, just because we have that wee Derry connection. Confirmation bias. Seeking out information that confirms what you already believe. So you know those first impression matters. First impressions don't have to stick. Confirmation bias is whenever you make your mind up and then you look for reasons to prove why that decision was right. Not fair. Attribution bias. Explaining other successes or failures differently than our own, or even just between two people. Sometimes it can be with gender, race, or seniority. So to give an example of that one, having two men get exactly the same score on a test, and then a woman getting the same score as the two men. Assuming the men, oh, it's because they're men. That's why they got that score. And then at the same time, saying to the woman, congratulations, that was amazing. The differences of opinion there is the attribution bias. And then we've got the halo effect. It's got a nice name, but I promise you it's not very good if it's turning up in your workplace or within your leaders. So it's allowing one positive trait, often something like confidence or your presentation, allowing one positive trait, confidence, presentation, or prestige to color our overall assessment of that person. So, for example, if I'm standing here talking very confidently to you, if you were making the assumption that I'm really good at project management or leading a team, just because you can hear me speak confidently, that's the halo effect. So if we just want to take a second to think about when those types of bias actually show up within the workplace. They don't show up wearing the names that was on the previous slide. they kind of hide within the systems within the workplace. So that's your hiring, your performance reviews, your promotions, your meetings. So if we talk about hiring for a second, right? Would two identical CVs receive the same reaction if the names were different? What can we do within our hiring process to stop any differences just because of the names? Performance reviews. How often is a man's behavior described as decisive? Whereas if a woman was saying exactly the same thing, identical behavior, it's described as aggressive. Think about the meetings that you're having. Whose ideas are always getting airtime, or whose ideas are getting airtime more than somebody else? Who's getting the credit for it? And actually, more importantly, who's not speaking at all? So as I said before, the best thing that we can do in this space is education. And what we know is that unless you're organically exposed to a very diverse environment, or if you've experienced exclusion personally, your learning opportunities in this space are very, very limited. You need to actively go out and educate, and it doesn't need to be as dir as a lot of other training, and it doesn't have to be always be labeled as diversity and inclusion training, but it really matters. Whenever we get educated in this space, the training provides not just awareness, it creates consistency. It helps you establish a common language. With your common language, the confidence in your speech builds as well. It gives you the confidence to have those difficult conversations, to challenge assumptions. So by challenging assumptions, what I'm really saying is stick up for those and, really boycott those situations that you're not comfortable with in work. So we always say, and I know Tricia will love this week quote, but training isn't just a destination, it's just a starting line. Mm. We love training. There's preaching to the choir here with the panel that we have. But I'll be the first to hold my hand up and say the training alone is definitely not enough in this space. You do the training to be educating it, but as you know, if you imagine any of the great leaders in the world, it's only enough whenever you see the actions come into place after the training is done. So it has to become part of your day to day, part of your processes throughout, embedded all throughout the learner life cycle or your employee life cycle within the company. Culture is always built through daily decisions. It's always built through the recruitment, your onboarding, your leadership, your performance reviews. It's always there throughout everything. What can we do? Put everything that you've learned in the training into the recruitment process so that whenever you're screening candidates, for example, have blind screening techniques or at least do little refreshers for them. Take off the names, make sure that there's no pictures. Are you reviewing two candidates side by side fairly and equitably? Onboarding processes. From day one, do people coming into your company know what you stand for and see a part of themselves that they can belong there? Your leadership techniques. Are you judging everybody's work the same? Are you having the same type of communication and performance reviews? Are they always transparent? Do you have a set process or are you just going with the flow? All those things are going to better the workplace culture. And what happens then? Your people can perform better, and that's going to help your business perform better. So just some examples of day to day when it really goes well within the company. Now, and it doesn't just happen like that. It's not just one big grand gesture. It's not just saying, oh, happy Pride Month. It has to be an accumulation of consistent, fair, and thoughtful decision made by all the managers across these four key moments. And I'm repeating these four to give you a starting point and bring it into the conversations with your leaders. Are we having structured interviews? Are we having consistent standards within our performance reviews? In the meetings that we have, with all the tech that we've got at the minute, are we making sure that all our meetings are accessible to everyone and that everybody in those meetings is being heard? Are we transparent about not just what we have to do on paper with report and pay? Are we transparent with the promotion decisions that we're making as well? Now, all the leaders stand up and be proud of these. And look, the slides will be shared afterwards, but this would be my go-to. If I was to do a leadership session, I'd always put these within. What leaders need to model whenever they're leading in this space. Inclusion is seen before it's heard, without a doubt. Before employees listen to what leaders say, they always watch you. They're watching who gets listened to, who gets recognized, who gets the opportunities. Think about the decision making. Before introducing a policy change, do you ask for input? Do you ask the questions? Do you create a focus group? Do you get your team involved so that you've got the diverse pool of thoughts, ideas to make your team better? Imagine how much better it could be if you did all these things. Now, how do we sell it? So again, some of these things I've learned over time, and that's me, rolling up the conversations, trying to get it into companies that have worked in, and what we're sharing these now is so that you can start to do it within your own companies as well. So senior leaders are not opposed to inclusion, but as we've established, they definitely respond better to language that actually connects their priorities. The most effective advocates for DEI or DEIB or EDI know how to reframe the conversation. So you're not going to go in with all these abstract ideas and all the smushy stuff, right? The fairness, equality, values, moral, any of that. What I want you to be able to lead with is use those buzzwords that they want to hear. Retention, productivity, risk reduction, recruitment, innovation, business performance. They aren't actually just buzzwords. They're strategic priorities that matter most. The moment that your leaders see inclusion helping to achieve those goals, the conversation changes completely. It's not that you need to wipe your hands of it, it's just getting started. So, word for word, and if I was to put a dairy twang on some of these, some of the conversation starters or the icebreakers to get you in the door are here in front of you now. So some of the things I would say if I was looking to grow my team is we are competing for talent in a changing workforce. Our inclusion track record directly affects who chooses to work here. I could say something like better decisions happen when more perspectives are considered. Diversity of thought is a risk management tool as much as a cultural one. These are the topics that you can bring to your leaders if you want to make a change within your team and within your business, all for the better. So a final takeaway from me, like hopefully some of these ideas and some of these buzzwords that have been repeated will definitely stick with you, and I'll be handing over to Terence in just a second. But if I could leave you with one final thought for today, please understand that diversity and inclusion, diversity, equity, inclusion, it's not about lowering standards. It's about removing the barriers. It's about making sure every person has the opportunity They contribute at the highest level, bring their whole selves to work, perform better. They stay longer, they'll contribute more ideas, and they'll take more ownership and be proud of it. They'll be proud of the organization that they're in. That's your organization. Successful organizations do all of the things in your screen, whether it's attracting better talent or building a stronger culture, because they're working in a diverse and inclusive environment. Thank you so much. And I'm going to just hand over to Terence now.
Fantastic, Soraya. Thanks so much for all of that. Really enjoyed it. You know what? It always proves you're never too old to learn. So I might be stealing some of that stuff off you if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Um, just to start, Tricia, thanks very much for the introduction. I might bring you to my events anymore. That was world class. I don't know how I'm going to follow it. Um, and just thanks for the invite to Mike Gaffney, who's not on here today. I think he said he's on some river down in Cork or something. But we're in salubrious surroundings with the ICE group and Leap Leadership, who are I suppose training for 25 years plus. We're the kind of younger pup in the group. We're only 7 years old, but really delighted to be here. Um, I suppose I get the bit to scare you if you don't do it. This is what's going to happen. But let me just preface that with something first. So we run a HR, a training, and a recruitment business. I would love if every call we got was, we have no issues, we've no challenges, we just want to put our HR in order. It never happens. What we get is, oh, we have an issue, or we have a claim, or we have a problem, right? And we're retrofitting. So you're behind the eight ball really from the get-go. So that's the bad news. The good news is it's never too late for it to be day one. So, what are we seeing at the moment? I suppose in the Workplace Relations Commission, which is the body that regulates employment law in Ireland. I don't want to teach you all to suck eggs, but for people who don't know that, there was a big change in 2015. We moved from the likes of NERA, the Equality Authority, tribunals to two bodies now, Labour Court and Workplace Relations Commission. The trend that we are seeing, and for my sins, I sit up there on Lansdowne Road about once every 2 months. I get the train up, I have a nice day out. It's open to the public once the adjudicator lets you in. And I just sit in there and watch the decisions. A big change I've seen in the last 12 to 24 months is it's not enough to have a policy in a drawer in a handbook. It's not enough anymore to just communicate that out and tick a box. What the Workplace Relations Commission are now looking at is, what have you done proactively to upskill your existing team and show me proof that you've carried that out. So that is the trend we're going for. So maybe years ago, what people called the soft side of HR was a nice to have. It was aspirational. Trust me on this, if you're the financial controller, and they're the people I like to speak to, this can have a negative impact on your company if you don't have the right setup. What I would say to you is, Ireland has a fantastic track record in employment law when it comes to this space. You know, I suppose when I started out, diversity and inclusion wasn't a word, but there was really good cultures. And what I would say to you as well, I'm of a generation that grew up in Ireland in the 1980s that really had no diversity. It was very much one size fits all, and people got on a plane and left. But what happened, obviously, with the Celtic Tiger is we had huge diversity come into the country, and now we're a melting pot. And it's amazing to walk around our city here and all the different smells and sights and colors. And my children were lucky to grow up with that and experience different cultures earlier in their life. However, we weren't all lucky enough to experience that. So bias does exist, and it's important that it's addressed, that you don't shy away from it. I've comments coming to me like all that nonsense, or, woke. Look across the pond. Look what's happening in other parts of the world where they're cutting funding for this. Whereas I'm delighted to say Europe drives on. Europe's a leader in this space, and very much Ireland. However, if I don't have a leader who is keen to get involved for the positive reasons, well, then I can switch it and speak to them about the exposure and non-compliance and the cost. And it's not in my slide, but Soraya hit the money there. The big thing we're talking to people about at the moment is the cost of recruitment and retention and retaining your staff. You know, what kind of first impression, what kind of an onboarding have you got for your new hire? What kind of inclusivity is available? Is it something they can see? So culture is not posters on the wall or, you know, pizza Fridays. It's a lived experience for people from, because you only have one chance to make a first impression. So what does the new hire's first day look like? Is it throw them a laptop and talk to Paddy over there if you have any questions? Like, is that your induction? And they've already made a decision saying to themselves, I'm going to be gone out of here as quick as I possibly can. Because you've spent so much money to get them to that point. You now need to ensure they're included in it. Okay. However, should you choose to still decide to go alone furrow and run your business like it's 1985, if I can't be too direct on that, these are the pitfalls that you're going to look at. So there's some serious statistics have come out from the WRC. I don't have anything up to date. These are the most recent ones that we looked at. So you can see you've got a 25% claim rate there on disability, you've got 20% on gender, and you've got 19% on race. So that is significant change in litigation in the Workplace Relations Commission. And it's not enough anymore, as I said, for want of repeating myself, to say, yeah, we have a policy and here it is, and here it is in their contract. What they're looking at now is what mitigation did you have? What did you proactively do to promote a positive culture in your business? Or if it's a grievance or if it's a complaint that has come in, what have you done as a business to rectify this to ensure it doesn't happen again? Now, that's hugely important. While this training isn't mandated by legislation with the likes of your safety, health, and welfare or your manual handling, it's critical if you're defending a litigation claim for equality or one of the 9 points, uh, you know, within discrimination, you know, like harassment, victimization, etc. So you got to have your policies as a starting point, but you've got to have your training, you know, to demonstrate. And it's not tick box training, it's training with an end result. So that's the bit I like speaking to CEOs and financial controllers. So if you have a CEO that kind of rolls their eyes or says that's aspirational, we need to get the build quality out the warehouse or whatever, it's always good to present a few figures. So there were cost of recruitment and retention, reasonable accommodation. You can't hide culture anymore. So if you're trying to recruit the best, that's what these kids are looking for. So they're looking for flexibility. They're looking for an openness and, you know, an honest conversation. And they're just looking to be respected and treated as an equal and shown growth opportunities within the business where they can grow. And that is the route you need to go if you want to retain your best talent and attract new talent. Because the new graduates are not interested in old school style management. And it's very much a lived experience, is what I would say to you. You know, gone is the day where training is reactionary and it's done to tick the box. It should be part, you know, of your strategy. The most important thing really is that the goals of the employees are aligned with the business and you're all on the same journey and on the same page. Sometimes it comes down to communication. Lack of communication is the biggest absolute killer of culture. How can you know if you don't talk to somebody? I mean, the thing I struggle with, and I'm going off on a bit of a tangent here for a change, uh, are the likes of reviews, where it should be an ongoing conversation about the whole, I suppose, holistic approach to their job, and then it's formalized in a review. A review should never be a surprise, or now that I have you, I'm going to let you know what you did wrong. However, all of this ties into culture. And what culture will do for you, let me assure you of this, whatever size business you have, I guarantee you that your future leaders are probably in the building, right? But you haven't identified them yet because you haven't fostered a culture of openness, of growth. We're all human beings at the end of the day. We're all emotional. We all have different goals and different needs. You may have somebody in there who is career orientated, however, may not be strong in speaking publicly, for example. You will never know this unless you foster a culture of openness where people can speak freely, can ask questions, and can grow. That's the big part of it. But as I said, if we need to talk to accounts in your business, we can do that. And I can show you some really hard statistics about the cost of rehiring, retraining, litigation, I suppose absenteeism. Exactly as Soraya said, the quiet goodbye should never, ever happen. I always, always struggle when I speak to somebody on the phone, when somebody says, yeah, oh yeah, he was with us for 15 years and then he just left. And I say, why did he leave? Well, I don't know. He resigned. Like, you know what? Shame on you as a manager. Like people, I'm not saying you need to be there every day or every hour, but an openness culture will foster that relationship where you are aware of it. So it's a commercial decision nowadays as much as an aspirational and being a decent human being. That's what I would say to you. The downfall of not doing it has now come up at a level of the benefits of doing it, if you understand me. And look, if there's questions on it, I don't want to take too much time. I'm conscious people have probably jobs to go back to, but that's kind of my little piece on it. Um, However, we don't want to scare people, but we do have to give you the facts. I'm happy to send out any stats anybody wants on with the, let's say, WRC hearings. No problem at all. Thank you, Tricia.
Great. Thanks very much, Terence and Soraya. I think that both of you have certainly been very thought-provoking. We've certainly heard some of the real good benefits, which is always a good starting point, and then obviously some of the costs. It obviously was thought-provoking because the number of questions that are coming through. So if you don't mind, and please feel free, anybody else would like to add another question. I'm going to ask a few of the questions that have come in here. Soraya, I might address this one to you. We're a small organization, but I think this might apply whether you're small, medium, or large. But anyway, we're a small organization. Where do we even start with DEI?
Great question. And do you know that question is often hard. It's difficult to ask, right? Whenever you've already got the off the ground, the fact that you're able to ask that question. Um, so I would say, reach out to a company like ourselves, and you can connect with me directly on LinkedIn to have a conversation. But the training that I always recommend starting with is the bias training, um, and how to celebrate the diversity within your workplace. So, like, I might have touched on it very briefly through the slides there, but how can you become more aware of what's actually sitting within your own organization, right? So training on recognizing that and being aware of how different diverse perspectives or neurodiversity, what's the benefits of having that in your team? And once you see the benefits, all of a sudden secondary to that, that it's a safe space for somebody with neurodiversity that might not have even been able to speak about it as well. So those are the two training topics that I would, and I just want to maybe as I connect in the question and do what Terence was saying as well. One of the things that small or SME organizations come to us and ask is, can you give us some diversity and inclusion training? We want to be able to write a diversity and inclusion policy, right? And saying just one? No, that that's not going to work. So just to give you an example, we do like a policy workshop with them, but it's not write this, tick this box. It's as an example, giving them a dress code policy, and the one that they're sitting and they've had in the company for the last 15 years has. I don't cringe whenever I'm saying all these things, but men have to wear trousers, women have to wear high heels and shoes, and you're not allowed to cover your head at any time or wear any hats. Is that inclusive? It's 2026, it definitely isn't. So just an example of as we've been speaking about, it's not just a one-stop shop. It's not just a policy wrapped away. It has to be embedded through everything that you're doing and all the policies that you've got. I hope that answered the question. So that's the two topics of training, and then maybe something like a policy workshop, just so that you can see all of the areas of the business
And I
that
suppose
you're
really,
going to.
Soraya, what you're saying there is the starting point actually probably is a conversation to say, where do you as an organization think that you're at the moment, and where do you
Yeah,
want to get to? Where are the
yes, yeah,
gaps, and that we can start to identify those gaps and figure out what's the best approach to addressing those gaps. I think
yeah,
that'll be a good starting point. And that
yeah,
leads to training and development, but at least training and development is put in the context, and the policy reform is put in the context of where it is as an organization you are and where you want to get to. So it makes
yeah,
a lot of sense. And for your leaders in your organizations to see this is how it's going to enable us in terms of where we need to progress to as an organization.
yeah,
Great.
definitely.
Okay. Great stuff. And just I'm conscious of the time, but Terence, I think this is a really important question that has been raised. What do you see as the biggest legal mistake that employers make when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Thanks, Tricia. Yeah, it's a really good query, and it's something that we get, I suppose, asked about all the time. I mean, you're seeing globally probably a lot of defunding in this area. Certainly not in Europe. Across the pond, it's a very different legal framework with employment at will. If you look in Europe, you can kind of split the page down the middle. You've got the employer obligations on one side, and you've got the rights and entitlements of the employee on the other. And both of those must be maintained. So it's now an obligation here in Europe to ensure, that the HR process is fair and transparent, and you ensure that people are trained properly, for want of a better word, in the rules of the business. So you're going to cover things like discrimination, harassment, victimization, which you would have seen from my previous slide even, have gone through the roof with litigation claims. The nine characteristics are really important. To put myself on the spot here, I'll try and remember them. So you've got traveling community, race, age, disability, religion, sexual orientation, family status, civil status, and married and gender. I think I mightn't have missed any there, but they are all relevant in today's culture and a litigation space that we look at. So fair recruitment is something, Soraya touched on. People are probably aware of that. Got to provide equal opportunities. However, it's got to be inclusive. It's got to be fair and across the board. So to round up that question on it, it's more exposure nowadays for not doing it than doing it. So some people, as I said, still have it in their head. Oh, that's all for, like the multinationals, for the large, for your Googles, with your bean bags and your pool tables. However, I'm going to go back to the point I said. It's not posters on the wall or pizzas. It's lived experiences. Show me how you as a business can demonstrate to people who might be looking in your shop window and considering joining your organization. That's this is what they're looking at, growth opportunities. And then on the flip side, if you don't want to acknowledge that, or if that doesn't float your boat, what's on the flip side for me as a business if I don't do it? So the one thing I would say to you about the Workplace Relations Commission, and I'll leave it at this, is pretty much it's really simple to log a case on the WRC website. Equality is probably one of the easiest ones to do. A lot of the litigation that an employee can take is defined by length of service. For example, 12 months for unfair dismissal, etc. A lot of this space isn't. So you can actually litigate, or you can lodge a claim for the likes of discrimination, equality, one of the 9 points, very early in the start of your career. That's why the onboarding, the induction has to be inclusive to really demonstrate this is what the company is about. Because let's be honest, we're all humans. We all make judgments pretty early on. whether you walk into a pub or a restaurant or a match or a job, you form an impression early. This is the employer's opportunity after spending all this money to get you to the first day to ensure you stay, grow, and produce at a really high level for a performing team. I hope that kind of answered it, Tricia.
Great. Yeah, no, 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 that's very helpful. And I think really for both of you, what you've really presented today
Mm.
is you've shared how exciting this space is, how important and relevant it is, how it can have such a hugely positive impact on businesses and organizations, which is something that we need to be aware of as we look to continue to grow as organizations. And I'm hoping for everybody participating today, what you're also picking up on is while it might be very broad and very complex, there's help and support there, and we will help you. We will work with you. It's about beginning the conversation so you can start to figure out what are the small steps we can continue to take as we look to enhance the culture and maybe address a few things that need to start to be addressed. So I want to thank both of you for your contributions here today. I want to thank the participants here who've joined us with your questions that you put forward. That's really helpful. I want to reassure everybody we will follow up with you. We will provide you with the ebook so that you've got further information on it. And we will reach out to you, and you are very welcome to reach out to anybody here today as you look to progress this conversation a little bit further. So I think that will conclude for today, and thank you very much to everybody.
Thank you so much, Tricia, and thank you to the two Johns as well, working in the background to keep us all in line. So
Great stuff. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye
thank
now.
you.
Look
So,
forward to
guys, go
hearing
on,
from
good.
you. Bye-bye.